FutureLink for having me. I'm very honored to be speaking to this audience. What I'd like to speak to you today about is what I work for Gartner in is I'm a life science industry analyst. And one of my key areas of emphasis is digital transformation. And I just want to congratulate everyone here in the room because digital transformation is one of the hardest things we as an industry is going to do. And it's part of the challenge is that we are at an incredible opportunity. With DSCSA, we've got a lot of information about our products, but now we need to convert that into our digital future. And let me explain to you a little bit about how and why. But first, for those of you who are not from the area, welcome to New England. One of the iconic images that you will have within New England is that of a lighthouse. And when you think about lighthouses and why they were brought into play, when you stand on the shore and you look out, you can see about, say, 3 miles or so. But if you have a lighthouse, you can actually see 10 to 15 miles out to sea. And the reason why lighthouses are so prevalent in this area is that it has a very rocky coastline. And one of the leading causes of death back in the age of shipping was from grounding. So there is a saying that smooth seas do not make strong sailors. And one of the things that we notice right now is that the age that we live in can certainly be seen as an age filled with fear and uncertainty. And so how do we translate? It's not enough to just be able to see. Visibility is not going to be enough for us. What we need is action. How do we convert the information that we have into real insights that transform our business and move that forward? That's what we're going to talk about today. So, one statistic I'd like to share with you is from Gartner research. And what it finds is that when we've asked chief supply chain officers how many of them are actually sitting at the executive table and making decisions, that's the number that we get, 48%. It was a bit higher post-COVID, but it's dropped off dramatically. And so what we need to do is we need to think about how do we keep a seat at the executive table. And there's some challenges that are associated with that. One of them is that we found that almost 4 out of 5 companies really do not have the ability to do scenario planning. And furthermore, only about 1 in 3 are actually have the CEO thinking that their supply chain operations are in full alignment with the full organizational alignment. So that is something that we're going to have to work on in order to change this so that we can get that seat at the executive table. So let me start with some terminology really briefly. We've talked a little bit about visibility, and we talk about, at Gartner, control towers. So control towers are operational frameworks. They're really designed, think of them as functional. You can see up and down, say transportation or warehousing, predominantly a domain-specific activity. What we're looking for are more of a command center. So a command center, it's taken from the military jargon, but really what it refers to is cross-functional activity, the ability to orchestrate much of what we've been talking about today. How do you take that information, convert it into activity? I've got a couple of bullets here on some of the differences that you might see. So it's not just about visualizations and dashboards. It's about then taking that, and we talk about predictive or prescriptive activity. That's what we're talking about when we talk about command center. We're talking about moving from that siloed functionality and making it, again, cross-functional and aligning that with our decision making. We're talking about remaining, it's getting out of that permanent firefighting mode where we're working on the crisis du jour and actually moving more towards being able to be proactive and responsive. So where does the command center sit? So what I've got for you today, again, I'm not concerned so much about the overall map, but what it does is it does give you, if you look at the very bottom, we're talking about your operational information. And then it moves through data warehouses, data lakes in the center, and then you've got your activities. But it sits outside of that informational warehouses. It gets information fed to it from all these areas, decisions are made, and then pushed outward. Let me give you two examples from industry that it is about more than just visibility. So we've got an aerospace manufacturer, and they use the visualization. You can imagine that these aerospace manufacturers are global in nature. So they need to integrate information from across the world. But they're able to get near real-time alerts with their command center. And that really helps in buffering their demand and supply. And if you think about the hundreds of thousands of parts that make up an aircraft, it's an amazing supply chain. They're able to do impact simulations and move things around to determine how that will impact the end-to-end supply chain. I've got a life sciences manufacturer who has a command center in place, and what they use it for is to manage some very complicated internal logistics. So this is just their internal logistics. This is not externally. They've got 92,000 internal shipments and 2,500 unique sites, but they're able to predict their slow-moving and obsolete inventory. That ability increased from 79% to 93%. These are the powers of a command center. Before I go further about this, let me correct a couple of myths about command centers. So command centers is just another type of control tower. That nothing could be different from the truth. So really what you need is the ability to convert that visibility into action. Command centers don't just serve clearly defined use cases. Many times we don't know what's going to happen in the future. And so command centers need to be flexible in order to pivot from crisis to crisis. Command centers do not replace the leading domain or applications. Really what they're meant to do is to take the information that is derived from these and then bring that together, coordinate that for your activity. And really, there are no command centers that are available out of the box. Every organization is going to be different and is going to require different pieces in order to put that all together. And there is no best practice deployment playbook. I can't offer you an off-the-shelf, here's how to convert your organization from a control tower into a command center. It's going to have to be done according to your organization. So the reality, many people think that there is a silver bullet. We all want to get to the predictive and the prescriptive analytics on the left-hand side of the page. But the reality is you need to focus first on that bottom layer. You must have good data. If you don't have good data, all you're going to be doing is setting up an infrastructure which is not sustainable. If you don't progress, you must progress from left to right. You have to get descriptive. You must understand what has happened, why it's happened, before you can move to what will happen and what your options will be. If you don't do that, what will happen is it'll work some of the time, but then you will not be able to understand why it worked. And that's going to be a challenge when the first time that you get something that doesn't match up with what you expected. We also know that it's a maturity journey. It's not something where you can simply rise up. Everyone wants world-class performance, but every Olympic athlete knows that they have to spend hundreds and thousands of hours practicing and training and moving up the ranks. So it starts with data and visibility. It moves to descriptive and diagnostic analytics, and then to predictive and prescriptive. And finally, you get to some of the higher-end intelligence techniques and autonomous decision-making. And to be honest with you, there really isn't a supply chain on the planet that is fully autonomous. It's just not, we're just not there yet. So this is a chart which really talks, if you think about the business strategy, about some of the key operations that we recommend that you focus on. It's about configuring and optimizing and responding and execution visibility. But you build up from the bottom here. You see that you start with your physical supply chain and data is generated off of that. From that, you build control towers. And then after you have this control towers, you can create those digital twins that have been talked about. And that gives you a digital representation so that you can run those scenarios, so that you can understand what happens if I change X, Y, or Z. And finally, once you have that all in place, you can get to a command center. So this is the overall journey that we are recommending that you follow. From a command center positioning, we have research which will walk you through how you get from step to step and moving from your end-to-end data capture, which many of you are already at today, and how do you move then and progress so that you can be able to make timely, informed decisions and get to that full end state. I have a couple of high-impact use cases here. These are some of the areas where you can actually gain some great benefit from having a command center. We talk about demand sensing and shaping or inventory positioning. A lot of companies start out with managing their inventory. And the reason for that is that all that information about where the inventory is under your control. So many of the activities that you are working on today can really help with helping you maximize where your inventory is. Further, you can move on to intelligent fulfillment or smart manufacturing or sustainability, a variety of different areas to work on. Let me give you 3 additional life science examples of companies that are currently using this type of framework to achieve real results. First company had a virtual creation of a lane which does not exist in real life. And through that, they were able to reconfigure their network and achieve 20% improvement on their MAPE. Second company is able to project their demand over the next 10 years. And they've also been able to create a digital twin of a plant prior to construction. And because they had that digital twin, they were able to optimize key variables. For example, they were able to maximize their energy efficiency and increase their sustainability. And that was before they ever put shovel to the earth. The third uses it for risk mitigation and event response. Modified planning at multiple nodes in order to optimize their production. So knowing that there might be a shock to the system in one area, they were able to reconfigure and shift things around so that it did not impact their overall production. Let me walk you through very briefly some planning considerations that you should have and why command centers are still really an ambition for many organizations. There is a tremendous amount of complexity increase when you do this. So let me be realistic about you're integrating internal and external information. You're also integrating structured and unstructured data. There is creating that digital twin is no easy feat, but it is incredibly important. There are some high-level challenges that organizations face when they look to create a command center. Many times that cross-functional coordination is difficult to achieve, especially in organizations most organizations are very vertically aligned, right? Our department cares only about their department, and having to sacrifice some departmental goals to achieve organizational goals sometimes requires the influence of executives. Data integration is, again, a major challenge. Information security is actually becoming even more prevalent, particularly with the prevalence of cyber attacks. Emerging technologies, lack of digital twins, the deployment approach. There are a number of challenges, but don't let that stop you, because I think the goal and the end achievement of having a command center can more than offset some of these challenges. From an inventory optimization standpoint, let's just talk through that. If you were to select that as one of the first areas to attack, again, we talked a little bit about why it's easier. It's a high maturity center. You've got a lot of that information already with known algorithms, but it may require new execution models. So what is your overall scope? Is it just going to be local, regional? Is it global? Who aggregates that information? How do you convey the modifications? Who adjudicates conflicts, which will inevitably arise? Those are the key questions you need to start to think about and to answer. I do have an example of a successful command center implementation, and what they did was they codified some of the key gains that they had. They were able to have automated data capture. They improved their transparency and their internal and external collaboration. They had really precise inventory status and their replenishment times and the capacity constraints. And they completely eliminated the use of spreadsheets for their decision making. They even came up with some new KPIs that they felt were more accurate for their new state, with shipment tracking and material control, consignments, supplier prioritization, product status, escalation. So all of these things were possible because they had a command center. What are their next steps? They're thinking about trying to come up with those predictive scenarios that they were not previously able to do and integrate artificial intelligence there. And then use that to automate scripts that will write data directly back to their ERP systems. That completes the core of what I wanted to convey to you today. We don't know what's going to lie ahead, but the key here is if we have created these new control towers and command centers, it will help us in being better able to weather the storms. So thank you for the time, and pass it back to Brian.